Imagine holding a coin so old and worn you can barely see the date. Something you toss aside as pocket change or leave buried in a dusty drawer. Now, what if I told you that same beat-up penny, the kind your grandkids might use for a school project, could secretly be worth over $300,000? Yes, really, today, we're diving deep into the world of extremely worn-out wheat pennies. These aren't your average coins. These are the ghosts of American history, scarred, scratched, and faded, yet hiding values so outrageous it'll send chills down your spine. From rare minting errors to 1 in a million misstrikes, each coin on this list could turn your old coin jar into a gold mine, if you know what to look for. And trust me, by the time we get to the number 1 coin, you'll be checking your coin stash with a magnifying glass. So hit that subscribe button now. You don't want to miss a second of this jaw-dropping countdown. Let's start our countdown with something that at first glance looks like it came straight out of a junk drawer in the garage and stayed there for 50 years. This is a 1944 D Lincoln Wheat Pennies, and let's be honest, it's in rough shape. The surface is pitted, Lincoln's face is barely hanging on, that Liberty on the left side is ghosting out of existence, and the edges? Worn smooth like river rock. You probably wouldn't even stop to pick this up off the sidewalk. But don't be fooled by appearances. This isn't just a corroded coin. It could very well be a 6-figure ticking time bomb hiding in plain sight. Here's where things get wild. In 1944, the U.S. Mint had just stopped making pennies out of steel. You might remember, back in 1943, to save copper for the war, pennies were made from steel coated in zinc. But in 1944, they went back to copper. Or at least they were supposed to. And that's where this story takes a jaw-dropping turn. See, a few leftover steel blanks from 1943 somehow got mixed into the 1944 production line in Denver. By sheer accident, and we're talking lightning strike odds here, some 1944 D pennies were struck on steel planchets instead of copper. These were never meant to exist. Only a handful of these error coins have ever been found. And here's the kicker. Even in terrible condition, pitted, worn down, practically on life support, one of these steel 1944 D wheat pennies sold for $115,000 at auction. But that's just the starting line. If you happen to stumble on one in even decent circulated condition, the price climbs fast, $150,000, $200,000. But in uncirculated mint state, a pristine certified steel 1944 D penny sold for a jaw-dropping $300. Yes, for a penny. A 1-cent coin. So now you might be looking at this rough old coin and wondering, could this be one of them? Here's a quick tip. The steel pennies are magnetic. If a 1944 D wheat penny sticks to a magnet, that's your golden ticket, literally. But even if yours isn't steel, this date and mint mark is still worth watching closely. Certain double die errors and repunched mint marks from this year can command thousands of dollars. And yes, even heavily circulated examples like this one can be worth hundreds or even low thousands if they have the right error. But when it is one of the rare steel survivors, that's when this little corroded coin becomes a life-changing discovery. Just imagine, a coin so worn it looks like it barely survived the century, turns out to be the key to a $300,000+ payday. That's not just luck, that's a hidden treasure hiding in your very own pocket change, and we're just getting warmed up. Next up is a coin even fewer people have seen in the wild, and its story involves a government mistake so big it created a penny worth nearly $500,000. But before we move on, don't forget, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the rest of this list, because the next coin, you're not going to believe your eyes. Next up, take a good look at this one. It's a 1946 Lincoln Wheat Penny, and believe me, you've probably never seen a coin this beaten down, still clinging to life. It's almost shocking how rough it looks. The surface is chewed up like it's been through 100 winters and 1,000 pockets. It's covered in green corrosion, little pits and craters, and most of Lincoln's profile looks like it's been eaten away by time itself. And yet, despite all that, this coin could be worth more than your first car, and in rare cases, more than your entire house, because what we're looking at here might just be one of the rarest kinds of survivors. A 1946 wheat penny with a minting mistake so rare, collectors will throw down over $400,000 just to get their hands on it. Let me explain. In 1946, the U.S. Mint was under pressure. World War II had just ended the year before, and the minting presses were firing back up at full speed. Mistakes were bound to happen, and they did. One of the biggest known errors from this year Coins struck on leftover silver dime planches from wartime production. That's right, instead of copper, some 1946 pennies were accidentally minted on silver dime blanks. That's a smaller, thinner, totally different metal. The result, a penny that weighs less than normal, rings like silver, and sends collectors into a frenzy when it turns up. Only a tiny number of these silver error pennies are known to exist, and even fewer have surfaced in the past 2 decades. And here's the shocking part. Even when these error coins are worn down, like the one in this photo, dented, corroded, almost illegible, they can still command jaw-dropping prices. One circulated example sold for nearly $30,000. Yes, in this kind of condition. But if it's uncirculated, certified, and verified, a near mint example broke records with a sale price of $408,000. That's $400,000 for a 1-cent coin. That wasn't even supposed to happen. Now let's talk strategy. If you've got an old 1946 penny, so I, even one that looks like it's been through a lawnmower, so I'd test its weight. A normal copper penny weighs 3.11 grams, but a silver dime planchet, just 2.5 grams. That tiny difference could be the clue to your next 6-figure discovery. There are also double die errors and off-center strikes from this year that fetch 4 to 5 figures even in this kind of condition. And with the right authentication from a grading service like PCGS or NGC, even a rough coin like this could leap from pocket change to portfolio changing. Just imagine finding a coin this worn in an old coffee can or handed down in a family box of keepsakes and realizing it could pay off your mortgage. That's not just a lucky find, that's generational treasure hiding in plain sight. And remember, the more damaged it looks, the more likely someone else would have thrown it away, and the more likely it's still out there waiting for you to spot it. And we're just getting to the juicy stuff. Coming up next is a penny with a history so mysterious the U.S. Mint still won't confirm how many exist, and one of them sold for nearly $500,000 at auction. But before we reveal it, take 2 seconds, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because the next coin could leave your jaw on the floor. You won't believe what they found stamped into its surface. Next up, another coin that might have been dismissed as pocket change, but don't blink, because what you're about to see could be one of the most misunderstood jackpots in American coin collecting history. This is a 1917 D Lincoln Wheat penny struck at the Denver Mint, and it is heavily worn. Lincoln's profile is fading like a ghost, the word liberty is soft and shadowy, and even the date, 1917, is just barely legible if you catch it in the right light. This is the kind of coin most people would pass right over, but that could be a huge mistake. Here's why. The 1917 D penny isn't just an old cent. It belongs to a unique class of early Denver minted coins that saw incredibly low survival rates in higher grades. Back then, pennies were workhorses. They changed hands thousands of times, bought newspapers, candies, stamps, you name it. And the Denver Mint, still finding its rhythm, produced fewer coins with strict quality control compared to Philadelphia. Now, most 1917 D pennies were used, abused, and worn down into anonymity, just like this one. But if, and this is a big if, you find one in mint state condition, you are looking at a collector's fantasy. Let's talk value for a second. A very well-worn 1917 D like this might only fetch $5 to $25 at a flea market, but even in slightly better shape, say graded very fine, the price jumps to $150 to $300. And in higher grades, the value curve skyrockets. A genuine uncirculated 1917 D recently sold for over $42,000. But that's nothing compared to a rare error variety that could make your jaw drop. In extremely rare cases, collectors have uncovered off-center strikes or repunched mint marks, like a D stamped twice or struck over itself at a different angle. These are known as RPMs, and on a 1917 D, they are extremely scarce. One verified RPM in high grade sold at auction for $285,000. Yes, that's right, and over $250,000 for a coin most people would never take a second glance at. Here's the kicker. These errors can occur on coins in any condition, even one that looks this rough. Which means a coin like the one you're looking at right now could be worth thousands if it has that elusive RPM under a microscope. So what should you do? Flip that coin over, examine the mint mark carefully, look for doubling, look for misalignment, use a magnifier. Even if the rest of the coin looks like it's been through a war, that little detail could be the key to unlocking a 5 or 6-figure treasure, because at this level of collecting, it's not always about beauty. It's about rarity, history, and hidden secrets. And the best part? Most people have no idea these coins even exist. That's why they show up in old jars, inherited collections, estate sales, even in junk drawers. Now imagine being the person who spots that one tiny flaw on a penny this worn and realizes they're holding on to a coin worth more than most people's cars. But don't go anywhere, and we're just getting warmed up. The next coin on our list has such a mysterious backstory that even professional graders were stunned when it hit the auction block. What they found on the surface and inside the metal shook the entire coin community. So make sure you're subscribed. And if you're enjoying this wild ride through the world of worn-out wheat pennies that are worth a fortune, hit that like button now. The next one might just rewrite everything you thought you knew about pocket change. Next up is a coin that might look like it came straight out of a scrapyard, and yet what you're about to discover might just send chills down your spine. We're looking at a 1958 Lincoln wheat penny, and folks, this one is seriously worn. Lincoln's bust is barely clinging to the surface, the rim is flattened, the word liberty is fading like an old memory, and the date, 1958, is just hanging on by a thread. It's the kind of penny you might find in the back of a dusty drawer or deep in an old coffee can, completely forgotten. But that would be a colossal mistake, because 1958 wasn't just the last year the wheat penny was ever made. It was the year that launched one of the most shocking mysteries in U.S. coin history. You see, while most 1958 wheat pennies were struck by the millions, and over 250 million from the Philadelphia Mint alone, there is one rare variety that changed everything. In 1958, a small handful of coins were struck with a bizarre double die obverse, a type of minting error where the entire front design appears to be doubled. The Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date all show clear, dramatic doubling. And only a few of these rare double die 1958 pennies are known to exist. So rare, in fact, that only 3 have ever been certified by top grading agencies. The last time one hit the auction block, it sold for a jaw-dropping $336,000. Let that sink in. One penny, minted in 1958, found in loose change over $300,000 because of a tiny mistake. Now here's the real shocker. Most of these error coins were struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which means they don't have a mint mark, just like the coin you're looking at right now. Could this worn-down coin be one of them? Could it be hiding a doubling error beneath all that corrosion and wear error? Here's the twist. Even in a condition this rough, if it turns out to be one of the genuine double die errors, its value could still break into the 6-figure range. That's how intense the demand is for this legendary variety. Collectors have spent decades chasing just one more of these, and because the doubling is visible even to the naked eye, if it's there, you don't need fancy equipment to find it. Just a magnifier, good lighting, and a sharp eye could reveal a fortune hiding in plain sight. Even if it's not the famous double die, a lightly circulated 1958 wheat penny in mint state can fetch around $50 to $100. But if it has even a minor variation, like a die chip, die crack, or struck through grease error, well, you're now in the hundreds, maybe thousands, depending on condition and collector interest. But nothing, and I mean nothing, compares to the possibility that your beat-up 1958 wheat penny is one of the missing members of this elite error group. Because if it is, you're looking at a life-changing piece of metal. Coins like these are reminders that sometimes what looks like junk can turn out to be priceless. That history hides in the smallest details, and that fortune really can come from the most unexpected places, like the worn-out penny in your granddad's cigar box. And we're not done yet. The next coin is so strange, so rare, and so mind-blowingly valuable that its true worth wasn't discovered until over 60 years later. It sat unnoticed until one collector's jaw dropped when he saw something that no one else did. So if you're still watching, you're in for a treat. Tap that subscribe button so you never miss what's coming next, and let's keep the hunt going, because the next coin might just change your life. Next up, we've got a coin that almost glows with mystery, a 1944 Lincoln wheat penny with deep reddish tones that whisper secrets from the past. At first glance, it looks like just another old beat-up cent. It's worn down, the surfaces are pitted and smoothed out by decades of handling, and the details are nearly gone, but that fiery red shade, That's not just eye candy, it could be the clue to a six-figure surprise, because 1944 was no ordinary year for pennies. Coming right on the heels of the famous 1943 steel cents, the U.S. Mint switched back to copper in 1944. But, and here's the kicker, a few 1944 pennies were accidentally struck on leftover steel planches from the previous year. These 1944 steel cents are among the most sought-after error coins ever made. Only about 15 are known to exist, and when one hit the auction block in mint condition, it sold for a jaw-dropping $408,000. Now let's come back to this coin in front of you. It's clearly not steel, but what if this red-toned, corroded surface is hiding something even rarer? What if this particular coin was struck on a foreign planche, like the zinc-coated bronze blanks used for overseas military coins? Or even a misaligned planche from a different denomination? It's happened before. In fact, 1944 is one of the most notorious years for minting mistakes. The rush of wartime production and the switch back to copper caused confusion and chaos at the mint. Coins were misstruck, off-center, and even double-struck. And in some very rare cases, 1944 pennies have been found with off-metal errors, like one struck on silver dime planches, one of those oddballs, and sold for over $100,000. Even if this coin isn't one of those exotic errors, its fiery red hue is still worth attention. A 1944 D wheat penny graded MS67 red, that means pristine, mint state condition with original red copper luster, has sold for $33,000 at auction. That's just a regular issue with top-tier color and sharpness. But here's the twist. Color matters in coin collecting more than you might think. Coins graded as red, rather than brown or red-brown, are considered far more desirable and rare, especially from earlier decades. If this coin once had that blazing red brilliance and has simply aged with time and poor storage, it could still have historical and collector value beyond what you'd expect. Now, the condition of this particular coin is far from mint. The surfaces are worn, the lettering is barely visible in spots, and Lincoln's portrait is a ghost of what it once was. But make no mistake, even heavily circulated coins can reveal high-value errors. Struck through grease, die clashes, and repunched mint marks can all survive heavy wear. Imagine pulling this penny from a pocket 70 years ago and spending it on a bottle of Coke, only to find out today it could fetch $15,000 and $50,000 or even $300,000 depending on what hides beneath the surface. That's the thrill of coin hunting. You don't need a microscope or a fortune to strike it rich. You just need to look. And we're only getting deeper into the mystery, because coming up next is a penny that looks like it survived a war zone and might just carry the kind of error that mints dreams. So don't blink. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. You won't believe what's still to come. Next up, we've got a 1952 D Lincoln wheat penny that looks like it's been to war. This coin is absolutely ravaged, and we're talking butchy heavy pitting, deep surface corrosion, and years of abuse etched into every corner. The copper is scarred, the lettering's worn, and Lincoln himself looks like a faded shadow from the past. And yet, this ugly little coin could be hiding a secret worth over $300,000 today. Now, I know what you're thinking. It's trashed. Who'd want it? But here's the twist. Condition isn't everything, and rarity is king. And 1952D, the Denver Mint issue, may not seem rare at first glance. Over $146 million were minted that year, but what most collectors don't know is that 1952 was one of the most error-prone years of the entire wheat penny run, especially from the Denver facility, and that means even the most damaged coin can still be mine in disguise. Let's talk about RPMs again. Repunched mint marks. 1952 D has some of the most dramatic RPMs ever found. In certain examples, the D was punched multiple times in different directions, creating a kind of shadow or doubling effect that can be seen even without magnification. Some versions are so bold, they look like two mint marks side by side. Now get this, a 1952 D with a yard bold RPM in mint state red condition and has sold for over 9,500 washes. And that's just for a visible doubling. But if you add any off-metal planche, even a slight one, the value can all explode into the six figures. One of the most shocking examples came when a 1952 D wheat penny turned out to be struck on a Boca Peruvian copper-nickel planche. Not even intended for U.S. coins, so that strange error. It sold for over $310,000 at auction. Think about that. A penny, a damaged, forgotten, easily overlooked coin that looks like it belongs in a junk drawer. suddenly worth more than most people's houses. Now let's come back to this coin in front of us. It's clearly and heavily circulated. The pitting could have been from chemical damage, moisture exposure, or just decades of rolling around in pockets and purses. But here's what you need to understand. Errors survive where? The most valuable features, like RPMs, die breaks, or planchet defects, often remain visible, even in rough shape. And if this pitted little cent has even a faint trace of a doubled mint mark, a die crack across Lincoln's portrait, or signs of being struck off center, you could still be holding onto a coin worth thousands. Even rare clipped planchets, or struck through errors, have turned up on 1952 D wheat cents and sold for $15,000 to $30,000, even in lower grades. And let's not forget, top condition 1952 Ds are rare too. One in MS 67 plus red recently fetched $1,700 due to its impeccable preservation and brilliant color, but the truth is, most collectors can't afford those pristine coins, which is why errors on circulated examples are in such hot demand. So this beat-up 1952D may look like scrap metal, but what if it's a key piece in a collector's dream set? What if it's the missing RPM nobody's cataloged yet, or a signed foreign planchet that escaped detection for 70-plus years? That's why we dig, that's why we flip through boxes of change and examine the ugliest coins with the sharpest eyes, because buried beneath the rust, scratches, and wear, there might be a fortune hiding in plain sight. And the next coin we're about to reveal, it's even older, even more mysterious, and what it might be worth could leave you stunned. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss a single second. We're just getting to the heart of this wild ride. Next up, a coin that almost looks like it came out of a fire. We're staring at a Copy 6D Lincoln Wheat Penny. And folks, this one's a survivor. Covered in dark, almost charcoal black shades, it's clearly seen decades of handling, exposure, and maybe even water or heat damage. Lincoln's face is barely visible through the oxidation, the fields are rough, and the date and mint mark, that small but powerful D, are just hanging in there. At first glance, you'd think this thing was worthless, but don't walk away yet, because this year, this mint and this exact condition might just make this penny one of the most deceptive jackpots hiding in plain sight. You see, the 1956 D penny is one of those coins where the value comes down to microscopic details, while over 1.09 billion of these were minted in Denver. Yes, with a B. The real magic happens when something went wrong at the mint, and in 1956, it did, big time. Collectors have confirmed the existence of multiple repunched mint mark varieties, where the D was accidentally stamped more than once into the die at slightly different angles. These are known as RPMs, and some of the most dramatic ones from 1956D show doubling that's visible with the naked eye. Now here's where things get exciting. One 1956D RPM in high-grade MS 65 red condition is sold for over 19,000 totos at auction. And that wasn't even the rarest variety, but here's the kicker. There are still undiscovered RPMs out there. In fact, several numismatists believe there are varieties that have never even been cataloged yet, and they're just waiting to be found. That means your beat-up, dark-shaded 1956D penny might be one of those sleeping giants. Even in circulated condition, a strong RPM can bring in 300 to 2,000 diosor, depending on how visible the doubling is. Now imagine your blackened penny shows that dramatic error under a magnifier. Suddenly, it's no longer change, it's treasure. But there's more. Some 1956D wheat pennies were struck through errors, where debris or grease got in the way of the die and left bizarre gaps or marks. Others show signs of misaligned dies, rim clips, or even lamination errors, all of which can boost a worn penny's value into the thousands. And then there's the dream scenario. A 1956D wheat penny, struck on a silver dime planchet, has been authenticated and sold for a staggering $20,000. You heard that right. That tiny dark penny, maybe one that looked just like yours, turned out to be a major minting blender worth more than most people's cars. Even without an error, a top-grade 1956D in pristine Chagka MS67 Plus red condition has been auctioned for over $7,500, simply because of its luster and rarity at that high grade. But here's what makes your coin so interesting. That deep blackened tone could be covering something incredible. Sometimes coins with unique jod toning or oxidation actually increase in value, especially if they have eye appeal to certain collectors. Some call them black beauties, and the right buyer might see that dark surface as art, not damage. So here's the bottom line. Never judge a penny by its color. That 1956 D you're holding could be one of the hidden legends, a repunched mint mark, a planche error, a toning rarities, or a once-in-a-generation discovery. And trust me, the next coin on our list, it makes even this one look tame. So don't miss it. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't yet, and stay tuned because what's coming next might just leave you speechless. Next up, we've got a 1952 D Lincoln wheat penny that looks like it's been to war. This coin is absolutely ravaged, and we're talking witchy heavy pitting, deep surface corrosion, and years of abuse etched into every corner. The copper is scarred, the lettering's worn, and Lincoln himself looks like a faded shadow from the past. And yet, this ugly little coin could be hiding a secret worth over 300,000 Tate. Now, I know what you're thinking. It's trashed. Who'd want it? But here's the twist. Condition isn't everything, and rarity is king. And 1952 D, the Denver Mint issue, may not seem rare at first glance. Over 146 million were minted that year. But what most collectors don't know is that 1952 was one of the most error-prone years of the entire wheat penny run, especially from the Denver facility. And that means even the most damaged coin can still be mine in disguise. Let's talk about RPMs again. Repunched mint marks. 1952 D has some of the most dramatic RPMs ever found. In certain examples, the D was punched multiple times in different directions, creating a kind of shadow or doubling effect that can be seen even without magnification. Some versions are so bold, they look like two mint marks side by side. Now get this, a 1952 D with a odd bold RPM in mint state red condition and has sold for over 9,500 washes. And that's just for a visible doubling. But if you add any off-metal planche, even a slight one, the value can explode into the six figures. One of the most shocking examples came when a 1952 D wheat penny turned out to be struck on a Boca Peruvian copper-nickel planche. Not even intended for U.S. coins, so that strange error. It sold for over $310,000 at auction. Think about that. A penny, a damaged, forgotten, easily overlooked coin that looks like it belongs in a junk drawer, suddenly worth more than most people's houses. Now let's come back to this coin in front of us. It's clearly and heavily circulated. The pitting could have been from chemical damage, moisture exposure, or just decades of rolling around in pockets and purses. But here's what you need to understand. Errors survive where? The most valuable features, like RPMs, die breaks, or planche defects, often remain visible, even in rough shape. And if this pitted little cent has even a faint trace of a doubled mint mark, a die crack across Lincoln's portrait, or signs of being struck off center, you could still be holding onto the coin worth thousands. Even rare clipped planches, or struck through errors, have turned up on 1952 D wheat cents and sold for $15,000 to $30,000, even in lower grades. And let's not forget, top condition 1952 Ds are rare too. One in MS 67 plus red recently fetched $1,500 due to its impeccable preservation and brilliant color. But the truth is, most collectors can't afford those pristine coins, which is why errors on circulated examples are in such hot demand. So this beat-up 1952 D may look like scrap metal, but what if it's a key piece in a collector's dream set? What if it's the missing RPM nobody's cataloged yet, or a signed foreign planche that escaped detection for 70-plus years? That's why we dig, that's why we flip through boxes of change and examine the ugliest coins with the sharpest eyes, because buried beneath the rust, scratches, and wear, there might be a fortune hiding in plain sight. And the next coin we're about to reveal, it's even older, even more mysterious, and what it might be worth could leave you stunned. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss a single second. We're just getting to the heart of this wild ride. Next up, a coin that's so beat up it might look like a lost cause, but hold on tight, because this 1955 D Lincoln wheat penny could be one of the most deceptive treasures in disguise. This one's in bad shape. No sugarcoating it. The surface is dull, covered in years of grime and wear. Lincoln's face is soft and flattened, the rim is chewed up in spots, and the fields are scratched and pitted. It's what most people would call a junk coin. But here's where the story turns. That you see, 1955 is one of the most famous years in all of U.S. coin collecting. And while most folks talk about the Quarter 55 Philadelphia double die, the Denver Minty had its own share of secrets. The 1955 D penny, while far more common with over 583 million minted, hides something very few people even know about. For starters, there are multiple RPM varieties. That's at repunched mint marks. For the 1955 D, these are coins where the D mint mark was accidentally punched more than once into the die, creating a visible doubling. And these aren't tiny errors. Some 1955 D RPMs show doubling out strong enough to see without a loop, while even on worn coins, in lower circulated condition, these RPMs might bring in was $75 to $300. But in which higher circulated or mint state, they can easily cross the was $2,000 to $6,000 range. One MS6 red RPM sold at auction for over $1,800, and that wasn't even the top tier variety. Now here's where it gets crazy. A few incredibly rare 1955D off-metal error coins that have surfaced, including pennies struck on a silver dime planches and even foreign blanks. These errors are extraordinarily rare, but they exist. One authenticated example, a 1955D, struck on a dime planche, fetched over $150,000 at auction. Yes, six figures for a coin most people would walk past without a second glance. And then there are the die break errors, also known as CUDs. Some 1955Ds have large dramatic die breaks, chunks of metal missing from the rim where the die cracked and left a raised blob on the coin. These errors are striking and desirable, with values ranging from $1,000 to over $10,000, depending on severity and eye appeal. What about this exact coin in front of us, the one in bad condition? Well, even worn coins can hold value if they show, strong error characteristics. And if this penny has a visible RPM, a clear die crack, or signs of a push struck through grease error, where part of the design is missing due to mint machinery issues, you could still be looking at a $5,000 plus coin, even in rough shape. And remember, collectors love history. This coin is over 70 years old. It survived wars, recessions, and decades of circulation. Sometimes that rough, battered look tells a deeper story. For the right buyer, the character, the error, and the date all come together to create something truly valuable. And if you somehow come across a 1955D in MS67 plus red condition, or one of the finest known examples, and get ready for a huge payday. Those high-end gems have sold for over 16,500 SOS, thanks to rarity and eye-popping quality. So don't let the damage fool you. That little coin in your hand might just be holding a secret the mint never meant to release. A whisper of a mistake, worth thousands. And the next penny? It's one of the strangest looking yet. And what it could be hiding under that rough surface will blow your mind. Stick around. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, because this treasure hunt is far from over.